The vibration of my phone against the wooden armrest of my old recliner was a sound I knew well. It was a specific, buzzing frequency that I had mentally assigned to my daughter, Sarah. It was the sound of connection, of my world reaching out to me in the digital age. I remember a small smile touching my lips as I picked it up, the warmth of anticipation already spreading through my chest. I was a 58-year-old man, my hair more salt than pepper now, and my life was a quiet, peaceful routine. But the arrival of a message from Sarah always felt like a sudden burst of sunlight through the drawn curtains of my living room. She was my miracle, the one bright spot in a life that had known its share of shadows. I shifted in my chair, a familiar ache in my knee from a long-ago fall reminding me of my age. I unlocked the screen, my thumb hovering over her name. My mind was already on the upcoming weekend, the baby shower. I had spent the last 3 weeks building a beautiful wooden rocking horse in my garage. It wasn't just any rocking horse. It was a masterpiece, a labor of love. I had meticulously sanded every inch of the solid oak, staining it a rich, warm mahogany so deep you could almost feel the history in the wood. I carved the mane in flowing, intricate swirls, and lovingly painted the eyes so they seemed to shine with gentle life. It was my gift to my future grandchild, a tangible piece of my heart that would hopefully become a beloved heirloom, a story passed down through the generations. The scent of sawdust and wood polish still clung to my work jeans. I was proud of it. I was proud of her. I was so excited to see her face when she saw it. But then I read the text, and the world as I knew it stopped. The screen was bright, almost blindingly so, and the message sat there in stark, black and white, refusing to be unread. It was a gut punch, a physical blow to my solar plexus that left me breathless. Don't come to the baby shower. Mark's parents think you're embarrassing. No greeting. No hey dad or I'm so sorry. Just that cold digital command. Proclamation of my shame. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was pure, unadulterated shock. I stared at the words, my brain refusing to process their meaning. Embarrassing? Me? The man who had worked double shifts for 20 years so she could have a good school, who never missed a parent-teacher conference, who held her hand through every nightmare and cheered the loudest at every school play. How could I be embarrassing? I read it again, and a deep, cold emptiness started to fill the space where my heart used to be. The rocking horse in the garage, the wood still holding the faint warmth of my hands, suddenly seemed like a monument to a foolish old man. A sad, pathetic joke. My eyes welled up, a burning sensation behind them that I refused to let spill over. The quiet of my house, which had always been my sanctuary, felt deafening now. The ticking of the grandfather clock seemed to mock me, each tick counting down to the moment I would realize I was being rejected by the person I loved most in this entire world. Then the shock began to curdle. It was replaced by a hot, corrosive wave of shame that started in my stomach and crawled up into my throat. Mark's parents, the wealthy, sophisticated Millers. They were the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. They lived in a world of country club memberships and charity galas. I was a retired foreman from a manufacturing plant. My life was simple. I wore jeans and flannel shirts. I was honest to a fault, perhaps too blunt for their polished world. The thought of them whispering about me, their lips curling in distaste, was unbearable. What had I done? I replayed the few interactions I'd had with them in my mind. Had I made some kind of faux pas? Did they find my homemade pickles strange? Was my story about fixing my own car somehow low class to them? I felt a profound sense of shame. But the shame was laced with a deeper, more devastating heartbreak. Why didn't Sarah defend me? She was my daughter, my own flesh and blood. She knew who I was. She knew the man who had sacrificed everything for her. Why would she just throw me away like a piece of trash to please her in-laws? The questions swirled in my mind. I was paralyzed, trapped in a vortex of humiliation and pain. I sat there in my recliner, the phone clutched in my hand, my knuckles white from the grip. I didn't scream. I didn't text back, demanding an explanation. I didn't call her, pleading for her to reconsider, begging for some kind of closure. What was there to say? My own child had just told me, in the most humiliating way possible, that I wasn't good enough for her new family. I was a liability, an embarrassment. An hour passed, maybe more. I couldn't tell you. Time had become meaningless. The light in the living room began to fade, casting long shadows across the floor. I was still sitting in the same spot, a statue of grief and confusion. The quiet was so oppressive it felt like a physical weight pressing down on me. It was in this tomb-like silence that I heard the sound of a car pulling into my driveway. I didn't move. I didn't care who it was. But then, I heard the front doorbell ring. The chime echoed through the silent house, startling me out of my stupor. I ignored it. I didn't want to see anyone. I just wanted to be alone with my pain. The doorbell rang again, and again. A third time, more insistent, followed by loud, frantic knocking on the old wood. Whoever it was wasn't going away. I forced myself to my feet, my knees feeling weak and unsteady. I shuffled to the door, my mind still a fog. I opened it a few inches, peeking out into the twilight. It was Mark, my son-in-law. He was standing there, but he wasn't his usual composed, professional self. The moment I saw his face, my heart seized with fear. His eyes were red and puffy, tears streaming down his cheeks. His shoulders were shaking. I'd never seen him cry before. In that moment, he didn't look like the sharp, successful businessman my daughter had married. He looked like a lost little boy. "Mark," I stammered, opening the door fully. "What's wrong? What happened?" My mind raced to the worst possible scenarios. The baby, Sarah. Had something terrible happened? He didn't answer at first. He just stood there, sobbing. And then, in a broken, shattered voice, he said, "Kevin, I'm so sorry. I heard everything." I stared at him, confused. Heard what? Heard what, Mark? He took a shuddering breath, wiping his face with the back of his hand. The text. I heard Sarah on the phone with her mother. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, pleading sincerity. She was in the other room. She thought she was alone. She was telling her mother about the baby shower and telling her to come. And then she said she told you not to come. The name hit me like a physical slap. Her mother, my ex-wife, Patricia, the woman who had left me for a more exciting life, who had shattered my heart long before any of this. The woman who had always seen my simple, working-class life as beneath her. Mark continued, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and shame. She was laughing about it, Kevin. She and her mother were laughing. They were planning it. Patricia already has a room at the house. She's the one who suggested Sarah lie to you. The world tilted. The floor seemed to lurch beneath my feet. I had to grab the doorframe to steady myself. The text wasn't about Mark's parents. It was a lie. A cruel, calculated lie. My own daughter had conspired with her mother to cut me out of one of the most important days of her life. The shame I had felt wasn't mine to bear. It was theirs. The humiliation I felt wasn't a reflection of me. It was a reflection of them. A wave of pure, white-hot fury washed over me, so powerful it made my vision go red. They made a fool of me. My own daughter and my ex-wife had sat there, laughing at me, while I sat in my home, broken and humiliated. But then, Mark did something I didn't expect. He stepped forward and placed a firm hand on my shoulder. His expression was no longer just sad. It was resolute. My parents don't think that. They never did. They respect you. They think you're a good man, and they would never judge you. My mom asks about you all the time, you know that. This was all Patricia and Sarah. A scheme. He looked me right in the eye, his gaze unwavering. But I'm not going to let them do this. I heard everything, Kevin. And I know the truth. You're not an embarrassment. This isn't a plan we're going to let them win. He squeezed my shoulder. Get your shoes on. We're leaving. I shook my head, the pain and anger still too raw. No, Mark. I can't. She doesn't want me there. I'm not going to force myself where I'm not wanted. Kevin, he said, his tone shifting from firm to a gentle plea. You're not forcing yourself. I'm taking you. I am the father of this baby too. This is my child's shower. And I want you there. My parents want you there. It is your right to be there. Let me do this for you. Let me show you the truth. Please. He was the one who looked like he was on the verge of breaking down again. He was asking me to help him do the right thing. And in that moment, I saw a glimmer of something I thought I had lost forever. A son. This man wasn't just my daughter's husband. He was a good man who was standing up for what was right, even against his own wife. How could I refuse him that? And deep down, a part of me, the part that was still a father, needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I needed to see her face when she realized her lie had been uncovered. I looked at him, my eyes still burning with unshed tears, but something else flickered in my chest. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was a stubborn, defiant refusal to be a victim. I nodded silently, walked back inside, grabbed my keys, and put on my worn leather jacket. I didn't change my clothes. I didn't slick back my hair. I went as I was, a hard-working man in a simple flannel shirt and jeans. This was who I was, and I was done being ashamed of it. We drove in silence. The streets of my small, familiar town blurred past the window. Mark was focused on the road, his jaw tight. I could feel the heat of his anger from the driver's seat. I sat in the passenger side, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. I had never felt so betrayed, but I was determined not to let the pain break me. Not this time. My ex-wife had taken so much from me already. She was not going to take my dignity. The Miller estate was everything you'd expect. A sprawling, immaculate home on a perfect, manicured lawn. The kind that looked like it belonged in a magazine. It was a world away from my modest two-bedroom house. The sound of laughter and chatter drifted from the backyard. A sound of a world I was supposedly not a part of. I could see the garden, decorated with elegant streamers and tables laden with silver platters. And there, in the middle of it all, standing with my ex-wife and a group of her social climbing friends, was my daughter, Sarah. She was laughing, her head thrown back, radiant in a beautiful floral dress. She looked like a perfect, happy hostess, but just seeing her face next to Patricius was like a knife twisting in my gut. They looked so smug. Patricia, with her too perfect hair and her effortless air of superiority. And Sarah, looking so much like her mother in that moment. I fought the urge to just get back in the car and disappear. What was I doing here? But Mark was having none of it. He took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the latch on the gate. He turned to me, his eyes fierce. Are you ready? I took a deep breath, the air feeling thin and sharp. Ready. Mark opened the gate with a loud, decisive click, and we walked through. The laughter didn't stop, not at first. We were just two men entering the party. But as we rounded a large hydrangea bush and stepped into full view, the laughter began to die down. A few people turned, curiosity on their faces. Then more people turned. An awkward silence descended on the crowd, a visible ripple of confusion spreading across the garden. Sarah saw me. The smile froze on her face. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her looking pale and sickly. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her eyes darted from me to Mark, then back again. She was flustered, completely lost for words. Patricius' mouth dropped open in a perfect O of astonishment, a mask of shock that looked comically fake. My daughter finally managed to find her voice, but it was a strained, panicked whisper that carried in the sudden, awkward silence. Dad? I told you not to come. It was the voice I'd heard 100 times as a teenager, the voice of a child caught in a lie. But this time there was no hiding. Mark stepped forward, his voice booming with a cold, righteous fury that silenced the last murmurs. I brought him, Sarah. I went and got him. You see, when you told him not to come, you didn't realize that I heard your entire phone call with your mother. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. He looked at his wife, and his voice was filled with a deep, profound disappointment. I heard you laughing with your mother about how you tricked him. I heard you make up that lie about my parents, which is a complete and utter lie. My parents would never do that. They're better than that. He gestured to me. He is a better man than this, and you know it. How could you do this to him? How could you do this to us? He wasn't yelling. but his voice was louder than thunder in the silence. He took a breath, his voice cracking with emotion. I am ashamed of you right now. I am ashamed to call you my wife. And I am ashamed to have you as the mother of my child. Sarah looked like she had been slapped. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time in my life, I saw a real, palpable fear in them. The mask of the perfect socialite had shattered, leaving behind the scared little girl she had been all those years ago. It was a look I never thought I'd see on my daughter's face. It wasn't anger I felt looking at her. It was a bone-deep sadness. How had it come to this? How had she become this person? This woman who would betray her own father for the approval of a woman who had abandoned her. She stammered, "Mark, it's a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Mark said, his voice laced with bitter sarcasm. "I heard you say it'll be so much easier if he doesn't come. Mom, you can have the guest room." "Well, just tell him Mark's parents think he's below them. It will be fine." "That's not a misunderstanding. That's a conspiracy." He looked at her, his expression final. "My parents are going to be here in 5 minutes. I am going to meet them at the front gate, and I am going to tell them the truth about what you did, and why you made them into villains in your twisted little story." He didn't wait for a response. He turned, looked me in the eye, and gave me a firm, silent nod of support before walking away, leaving the entire crowd in a state of frozen shock. The silence was unbearable. Sarah was openly sobbing now, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Patricia was a statue of frozen fury, her perfectly painted lips pressed into a thin, white line. The guests didn't know where to look. They were trapped in the middle of a private family implosion. And then, I did something I never expected to do. I didn't walk away. I didn't run. I saw the rocking horse, still in the back of Mark's SUV where I had carefully placed it earlier, thinking I was going to surprise her. I walked over to the car, my legs feeling like lead, and unlatched the trunk. The scent of sawdust and fresh wood polish hit me. I picked up the rocking horse, cradling its weight against my chest. Felt solid, honest, and full of love. I carried it into the center of the garden, past the stunned guests, past my crying daughter, past my seething ex-wife. I set it down on the grass, right in the middle of her perfect, expensive decorations. I didn't make a speech. I didn't look at anyone. I just looked at the beautiful, handcrafted horse, a piece of my heart, and I spoke. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the silence. "I built this for my grandchild," I said. "Not for them. Not for you. For my grandchild. This is a gift of love. It's something from me and me alone. It will always be here waiting for them. It stands for a promise. A promise that no matter what happens, I will always love them. Not your money. Not your lies. Just my love." I left it there. I turned and started to walk. I walked past my ex-wife, past my daughter, and through the gate. I didn't slam it. I just closed it quietly behind me. I heard Sarah sob, "Dad." But I didn't stop. I had said everything I needed to say. I walked out of their perfect world and went home to my small, quiet house. I sat in my worn-out recliner, feeling the ghosts of the past with me, but also a sense of profound peace. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't punish her. I just walked away. And in that moment, I realized something. The loss wasn't mine. The loss was hers. She had traded her father's genuine, unconditional love for a few hollow seats of approval at a table she was terrified of being uninvited from. She had thrown away a man who would have given her the world, for a world that could never love her like I did. A week later, I got a letter. It was from Sarah. It was long, filled with tear stains, and full of apologies and pleas for forgiveness. She said she had been wrong, that Patricia had manipulated her, and she was weak and stupid. She begged me to come see the baby when it was born. She said Mark's parents had told her she was the one who was embarrassing for trying to impress them by lying about her own father. I kept the letter. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I put it in a drawer in my bedroom. It's a reminder of a painful truth. I might not have the grand mansion or the country club membership. I might be just a retired foreman, But I have my integrity. I have my love. And I know what it means to be a good father. I loved my daughter with all my heart. But I learned that you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You can only be the man you are, and hope they see the truth one day. And that is the only lesson I will ever need to teach my grandchild.